Why are there no giant insects anymore? If you go back hundreds of millions of years, the planet looked a bit more like a science fiction world. Dragonfly-like insects with wingspans bigger than your arm. Millipedes the size of cars. Creatures that today would look completely impossible for an insect body plan. So what changed? Why did insects shrink from mini monsters to the relatively small forms we see today? The answer starts with something deceptively simple: air. Insects don't breathe like mammals. They don't have lungs. Instead, they rely on a network of tiny tubes called tracheae that deliver oxygen directly to their tissues. Air enters through small openings in their body and diffuses through these branching tubes. This system works extremely well at small sizes, but it has a critical limitation. Diffusion only works efficiently over short distances. As an insect gets larger, those oxygen pathways have to extend farther and farther into the body. Eventually, the system hits a hard physical wall. Oxygen can't reach deep tissues fast enough to support large, energy-demanding organs. So at first glance, it looks like insects are simply limited by design. But that's only part of the story, because there was a time when insects did grow much larger. During the late Carboniferous Period, Earth's atmosphere contained significantly more oxygen than it does today. Estimates suggest around 30 to 35% compared to today's 21%. That extra oxygen changed everything. With more oxygen in the air, diffusion through insect tracheal systems became more effective. Oxygen could penetrate deeper into tissues, allowing insects to grow larger without suffocating at a cellular level. So in that ancient world, giant insects were not only possible, they were actually supported by the environment. But then things changed again. As plants evolved and ecosystems shifted, atmospheric oxygen levels dropped and stabilized closer to modern values. At the same time, new types of animals appeared that completely changed the competitive landscape. Vertebrates, especially reptiles and later birds and mammals, introduced a fundamentally different body design. Unlike insects, they don't rely on passive diffusion systems. They have active pumping lungs and circulatory systems that transport oxygen efficiently throughout large bodies. That means vertebrates could scale up in size far more effectively than insects. So now insects faced a double constraint. First, their oxygen delivery system limits how large they can grow. Second, they are now competing in ecosystems dominated by animals that can grow much larger and more complex. And there's another hidden factor: predation pressure. Large insects are easier to detect, slower relative to body size, and less protected against vertebrate predators. Once birds evolved flight and became highly efficient aerial hunters, being a large flying insect became especially dangerous. It's one thing to be big in a world without fast, intelligent airborne predators. It's another thing entirely when the sky itself is filled with them. So over time, natural selection pushed insects toward smaller sizes. But this doesn't mean insects are failing in any sense. In fact, they are one of the most successful groups of animals on Earth. Their small size is an advantage in many ways. It requires less energy, allows faster reproduction, and enables them to occupy extremely diverse ecological niches. So instead of scaling up, insects diversified sideways. Still, the idea of giant insects is not entirely impossible in theory. If atmospheric oxygen levels were significantly higher again, and if ecological conditions reduced vertebrate pressure, larger insects could potentially reappear. But under today's conditions, physics sets a boundary that evolution can't easily break. So the real reason there are no giant insects anymore isn't because insects forgot how to grow large. It's because the combination of oxygen physics, biological design, and modern predators makes large insect bodies unsustainable in today's world. And what looks like a vanished monster is really just a body plan operating right at its environmental limits.